we're going to continue. Just change it to the next slide. There's only one slide. You're good. There you go. We're going to continue through James. I was sitting there looking for it. Crystal, did you leave that up? No. We're going to continue through James today. And we're going to talk about trials and tribulations and what James has to say about that. If you want to open up read James chapter 1. We're going to read verses 2 through 4, and then we'll also skip to verse 12. And then we'll cover 12 again down the road also. So there was a pilot by the name of Henry Dempsey. Henry was the head pilot on the flight. It was a commuter flight. And he kept hearing on a small plane, he kept hearing a noise coming from the back end of the plane that he didn't understand what it was. And so he turned everything over to his co-pilot, told him he was going to go check it out. Well, as he gets back towards the tail end of the plane hits some turbulence. And Mr. Dempsey falls and hits the rear door and quickly learned what the source of the noise was. The rear door was not latched. Mr. Dempsey goes straight out said door. And the pilot sees the red light come on up front for signal of the door being open, so he radios the nearest airport and says, "Hey, I need to land. I've got a door open." He said, "I think my pilot just went out." And he said, "So we need to get a helicopter. We need to go start searching the area over the ocean where he went out." And so as they begin to land, he gets word that they have found Henry Dempsey holding on to the outdoor ladder of the aircraft. Somehow he had caught the ladder and held on for 10 minutes as the plane flew in excess of 200 miles an hour at 4,000 feet above the ground. Then at landing, he managed to keep his head away from hitting the runway, which is just a mere 12 inches away. It took airport personnel several minutes to pry Dempsey's fingers from the ladder. Pretty scary story, right? All of that to tell you this: life gets turbulent. And sometimes we don't know how to hold on. Sometimes we don't feel like holding on. But, much like Dempsey's case, have you considered the alternative? Nobody in this world lives without troubles. Christians are not immune and will face more than their own share of problems. How we handle those troubles in our life means the difference between being shallow and bitter or mature and joyous. So open up with me to James. Hopefully you've had time to turn there. This is what verses 2 through 4 say. "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." And if you turn to verse 12, it says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast in the trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." Steadfastness or perseverance, as many versions put it. So what does it mean to be on trial? There's two definitions here. One from the NIV is trial. King James Version uses the word temptation. It's an enticement to sin, which that's what the devil does every day of our life. Entice us to sin. Entice us to do things we know we shouldn't do in our life. Okay? And that enticement is different with every person. Okay? The things that entice me are probably not things that entice some of you. The way we are enticed, the way we are tricked, the way we are tested into doing things we shouldn't is different. The devil wants to trip you up. This kind of trial is mentioned elsewhere in James, but I don't think that's what it's talking about here. I think this is more a trial to test faith, similar to like Job's ordeal in the book of Job. God was ultimately behind it. As you read the book of Job, you know that the devil says, "Hey, let me do this." And God's like, "Okay." Because I know Job will abandon you then. God looks at the devil and says, "I think you doubt Job, but okay." The purpose is not to shatter faith, but to reveal its genuineness. I think that's the key to what we just read. I think there's three varieties of trials that we go through in our life that fall under this category of the testing of our faith. I think we see that throughout Scripture. In Galatians, we see the reap what you sow trials. We make stupid mistakes, we pay for them. Those type of trials. Okay? We've all been there in life. We've made a stupid mistake. We made a stupid choice in life. And now we have to pay for it. This is in every aspect of life. You reap what you sow. Sometimes, though, that's the bad part about the reap what you sow trial is you don't reap it. The people who come after you reap it. And they have to pay for it. Then there's the spiritual trials that we see in 1 Peter. Persecution and rejection. Now, this is the trials we read about a lot, especially in the Muslim faith. When Muslims are converted to Christianity, they're abandoned by their family. They're let go of by their family. In a lot of instances. They're rejected in a lot of ways. And I don't think that just ends within the Muslim faith, though. We see that a lot in our own homes, here in Macksville. Not necessarily the complete rejection, but that you don't view things exactly like I do, so we can't get along anymore. Rejection. The truth is, though, that if we don't find Christian friends to support us, becoming a born-again Christian carries a heavy price. So we have to find those friends to support and grow with, to love with, to care for with each other. Christians should be out of step with society. We're asked to be in this world, but not of this world. And that's a big difference. That's part of who we are as a Christian. We're to be out of step with society. We're to stand out of the norm. We're to be recognized. And so part of that persecution, rejection is brought on by just being recognized. And then we get those mysterious trials, like what Job went through. They don't have a clear-cut reason. These are the ramifications of living in a fallen world. Some of these trials, we'll never know their reason. You know, one of the things that I struggle with when ministering to people is they'll be going through something like, well, God's got a reason. No, not necessarily. You know, not everything is like Job. Our scripture does tell us that God can make good out of anything. So God can take that trial, that tribulation, and make good out of it. But that's part of evil and suffering in the world, that things are going to happen. God didn't have a reason for so-and-so getting drunk and driving. Okay? God never had a reason for that to happen. I want you to understand that. Now, can he find a positive light? Can he bring good meaning out of it? Yeah, you bet he can. But he didn't put that into motion. A fallen and evil society and world put that into motion. A world that enjoys sin more than life put that into motion. And those are the things that we have to learn to deal with in our world, in our life. Is how do we find the good in the midst of those trials and tribulations? Many people turn to bitterness. Many people turn to being angry with God. God is blamed for not changing things. God is blamed for not living up to expectations. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my ministry people have asked me, why would God allow? Why did God? I know we serve an all-powerful and almighty God who can see things at the snap of a finger. But we reap what we sow in life. And sometimes, whether we like it or not, those things come in the dozens at times. Others become very apathetic and they withdraw from life. They may feel they've been singled out and life's not fair to them. We're getting a lot of that in our society today. But this isn't fair. This isn't what I signed up for. But James gives another alternative. Rather than withdraw from life, rather than becoming bitter and angry, James says, joy. And I'll be honest, this sounds very cliche and simplistic, kind of masochist even in a way. But he's not talking about a pasted-on smile. He says, consider it pure joy. Not that pain is joyful, but our attitude about it makes the critical difference. You know, we can all tell stories of things that have happened to people and the way that they responded. Was it joyful or was it bitterness? You know, I say that because I had an illustration. I had a story I wanted to share with you, and it's a sad one. It tugs at you a little bit. But the point of it is that we have to go from an attitude of, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? How am I going to make a difference in my life now that this has happened, now that so-and-so's passed, or now that I've lost my job? What am I going to do to begin to get to a point of asking, what is God going to do? Rather than being so wrapped up in the self-pride of the trial or the tribulation, we begin to simply ask, what is God going to do? Because as I said, it's not God who necessarily put us in those situations, but it's God who can bring a light to that situation. Those joy and trials, it's an alien attitude to us. But it's a common attitude in the Bible. Jesus says, blessed are you when persecuted. The books of Acts says the apostles rejoiced that they were considered worthy to suffer. Paul says in all his troubles, he knew joy had no bounds. And Hebrews says, joyfully accepted confiscation, knowing they had lasting possessions. So what do we take joy in the middle of a trial, in the middle of a tribulation, in the middle of a struggle in our life, in the middle of hitting rock bottom and not finding a way out? What is it that we take joy in? You know, we take joy in knowing that God the Father can change it. We take joy in knowing that God the Father can bring a light. But pain has a purpose. We hate pain. We have to look beyond it. God uses that pain to reach us and to teach us. So sometimes when we go through those things, yeah, it is a test from God to see if we truly are following Him. It's like testing a metal. Is it real or is it counterfeit? It's a process of refining to get rid of bad, to reinforce the good. Every situation in life is a process of learning who we really are. Every situation in life is a process of learning who we really are. So I've said it a lot in my life. You want to know who somebody's inner being is, who the core of them are. Find them in the middle of rock bottom. Find them in the middle of a tragedy. Who do they turn to? What are they seeking at that moment? Are they asking the question of what is God going to do to pull me through? Are they asking the question of how is God going to bring light to this? How is the glory of God going to be shown through this event? Or are we in self-pity mode? Are we wallowing? Are we floundering in ourselves? Hard circumstances burn away negative aspects of our life. They reveal the realities. Sometimes they reveal to you perhaps your faith isn't as solid as you thought. Perhaps your faith was based on an unrealistic view of the world. Your faith might really be a bargain with God. You'll believe in Him as long as He blesses you and keeps the good rolling. But the scripture we read says it produces steadfastness. It produces perseverance. So it's not just patience, but a stick-to-itiveness. The ability to continue to believe in the midst of hard times, to continue to believe and push through in the midst of the rough times. We need a faith that overcomes adversity. We talked about James to start last week. And we talked about the kid brother of Jesus, the little brother. And what it was like growing up with a Savior, and how tough that may have been, because of the choices he had to make, the life he had to make as far as who Jesus was. The way he grew up, that Jesus, his older brother, was a quack. He grew up thinking he was bonkers, he was crazy. But now here's that same guy looking at you saying, all of that was to develop who I am today. All of that was for me to persevere and to continue to grow my faith. We are given a faith. A lot of times, especially in this part of the world, the Bible Belt, we are given a faith that is taught to us by our parents, our grandparents, and it's passed on to us. If we didn't experience trials and struggles in life, that faith would never become ours. It would stay mom, dads, grandparents. But it's that testing of that faith, those struggles, those trials we go through, that develops that faith into who we are. I'll tell you about a friend of mine growing up. This is one of her favorite stories to tell. She had a grandmother who had Alzheimer's really, really bad. And as the Alzheimer's began to set into the later stages, all Grandma wanted to do anytime you'd see her was, they would go somewhere, she'd put on her hat or something, she'd look at you and go, Mom, I knit my hat. You're looking at an 87-year-old lady, she'd be zipping up her coat, Mom, I knit my coat. And his later parts begin. Well, they took her to the fair one day. And they were off riding rides and doing things, and Grandma was just with them, having a good time out. Well, Grandma's son, my friend's dad, had bought Grandma a rose because Grandma loved flowers. She said it was the funniest thing. So we walked through the fair. She's like, that flower was just glued to my Grandma's nose half the time. She said we got to one of the rides where my Grandma would sit on the bench And she said, there was another girl sitting there. And she said, my grandma sat down with her. She said, we all went down on the ride, and we come back, and that little girl has my grandma's robes, and is just sobbing. My parents began to talk to the girl. And she said, thank you for sharing your grandma with me and her incredible faith. Like, what? She just sat here and told me all about God, all about Jesus. She said, I'm going to be honest with you. She said, today was going to be my last day on earth. But I have a rose now. Because there's so much more to life than that. And Grandma reached over, gave the girl a hug, and went there and said, Mom, I knit my hat. We go through life, and we develop who we are in our faith through those trials and struggles. And no matter where we reach in life, that faith will persevere. From a grandma that wouldn't talk other than Mom and knit this or that for me, to apparently sharing our faith in ways that nobody ever knows besides Grandma and that girl. To the test of our faith in way smaller ways each and every day of our life. Some of those simple tests are just getting out of bed in the morning. I mean, we've all been there. We woke up, the alarm going off, the sun peeking through the window, and we always think to ourselves, nope, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it today. To the big things in life, the big struggles, losing jobs, losing loved ones. All of that develops the faith we have today. And to think about that from the perspective of James's little brother, or Jesus' little brother James. You're talking about a tremendous turnaround, a tremendous faith. So we get to that aspect of that reap what you sow in your faith. We get to that aspect of James reaping what he sowed in the thoughts of his older brother. I need everybody in here to understand one thing. That forgiveness reigns supreme above any trial or tribulation you put yourself into. We get so caught up in the things of life. We get so caught up in the things of I don't know whether I'm good enough for Jesus. I've done some pretty wicked things in my life. I've done some pretty awful things. James wrote a book. It's in the Bible. He called his own brother crazy. Forgiveness reigns supreme, no matter where you find yourself in life. Paul wrote 3/4 of our New Testament. Designed, put into motion, plans to massacre hundreds of Christians at a time. Forgiveness reigns supreme in your faith. So no matter what aspect of that testing you've been through, the reap what you sow, the mysterious things of the unknown, wherever you're at, God has a plan to strengthen and grow each of you through the trials and struggles that you have in life, to develop that perseverance of your faith. That you'll find yourself in adventures that you will never know, and your faith will reign supreme. That's what trials and troubles do for us. Though they stink, though they make life rough sometimes, they develop our faith. They develop the here and now of who we are. So we're asked to take joy. We're asked to understand that God's going to bring light. God's going to bring good. God's going to help you grow. God's going to develop you into something bigger because of it. So take joy. Take joy. And it's not a sarcastic joy of, oh yeah, another job lost, let's do it again. You know, what are you going to do now, God? Where are you going to take me now, God? Because God's got a big plan. And we're just a small part of that story. We don't get to see the whole picture. So stand strong. Be bold, be courageous in your faith. When those struggles come, when those trials come, let God work. Let it make you into something bigger. Pray with me. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this time being in your house, God. We thank you that we have the opportunity to come to praise and worship you. And Father, now as we look at what it means to struggle sometimes in life, what it means to go through these trials and troubles in our life, God, we just ask that you help us to take those times, to grow with them, to run with them, to make ourselves more than what we are through them, God. Through you, what you're going to do for us. Father, we just ask that you be with us each and every step of our journey. It's in Jesus' name, amen.